Admiral Tae-young Kim stood on the observation deck of border station Jeju 7 and watched the stars. He had been watching them for 30 years now, ever since humanity decided to draw a line around their space and tell the galaxy to stay out. The station floated at the edge of Terran territory, a massive structure of steel and determination that marked where human space ended and the rest of the universe began. Tae-young was 52 years old. His hair had gone gray at the temples and his face carried the lines of a man who had seen war. He wore the dark blue uniform of the Terran border fleet with quiet pride. On his collar, 4 silver stars gleamed under the station's lights. He had earned every one of them defending humanity's right to be left alone. Behind him, the door opened. Captain Una Park entered the observation deck, her boots clicking against the metal floor. She was young for a ship captain, only 34, but she had proven herself in a dozen border skirmishes. Her ship, the Dreadnought Indomitable, was the most powerful vessel in the border fleet. When she spoke, her voice was calm but serious. "Admiral, we have incoming vessels. Long-range sensors picked them up an hour ago. They're Valdari." Tae-young turned from the window. The Valdari Empire ruled 50,000 star systems. They had been the masters of the galaxy for 10,000 years. Humanity, by comparison, had only left Earth 600 years ago. The Valdari considered humans to be children playing at civilization. "How many ships?" Tae-young asked. 20 vessels. "They're broadcasting diplomatic codes, sir. They say they want to talk." Tae-young nodded slowly. "Then we'll talk. Send them docking coordinates, but keep the Indomitable ready just in case." 3 hours later, the Valdari ships arrived at the station. They were elegant vessels, all curves and silver metal that seemed to flow like water. The Valdari loved beauty, even in their warships. The lead ship requested permission to dock, and Tae-young granted it. The Valdari ambassador was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and eyes that shone like polished gold. His name was difficult for humans to pronounce, so Tae-young simply called him Ambassador. The Valdari wore flowing robes that seemed too fancy for a military station, but that was their way. They met in the station's conference room. Director Hyun-woo Lee from Terran Intelligence was there too, a quiet man with sharp eyes who watched everything. The ambassador sat across from Tae-young and smiled, showing teeth that were just slightly too pointed. "Admiral Kim," the ambassador said in perfect English, "thank you for receiving us. I bring greetings from Emperor Rathnor himself." "You're welcome here, Ambassador," Tae-young replied. "What does the Emperor want?" The ambassador's smile widened. "Direct as always with humans. Very well. The Emperor requests passage through your space. We have colonies on the far side of your territory. The route around your border adds 3 months to our journey. We simply wish to pass through. You would hardly notice us." Tae-young had expected this. For years, the Valdari had been asking for access to Terran space. For years, humanity had refused. The border existed for a reason. "Ambassador, you know our position. No foreign military vessels in Terran space. No exceptions." The ambassador's smile faded a little. "Admiral, surely you understand this is unreasonable. The Valdari Empire spans the galaxy. We have ancient rites of passage that predate your species' discovery of fire. To deny us is to deny 10,000 years of galactic law." Director Hyun-woo Lee leaned forward. His voice was soft but cold. "Galactic law recognizes the sovereignty of spacefaring nations. We're a spacefaring nation. Our borders are our own." "Your borders are an insult," the ambassador said, his voice harder now. "You hide behind your walls like frightened animals. The galaxy has rules, Admiral Kim, rules that existed long before humanity reached the stars." Tae-young felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his voice level. "Those rules didn't stop the Valdari from conquering 100 other species. They didn't stop you from turning half the galaxy into your empire. We studied your history, Ambassador. We know what happens to species who let Valdari ships into their space. First comes passage rights. Then comes trade agreements. Then comes military protection. Then comes annexation. We've seen it happen 50 times. The ambassador stood up, his golden eyes flashing with anger. "You dare to lecture me about our history? We brought civilization to this galaxy while your ancestors were still learning to make stone tools. We have been patient with humanity, Admiral, but our patience has limits." "So does ours," Tae-young said quietly. The ambassador stared at him for a long moment. Then he smoothed his robes and sat back down. When he spoke again, his voice was dangerous and soft. "Let me be clear, Admiral. The Emperor wishes to maintain friendly relations with humanity, but the Empire will have passage through your space. One way or another. You have ships, yes. You have weapons. But we have 50,000 systems. We have 1,000,000 warships. We have resources beyond your counting. If you refuse this simple request, you force us to respond. And that response will not be gentle. Tae-young stood up slowly. He placed his hands flat on the table and looked the ambassador directly in his golden eyes. Let me be equally clear, Ambassador. 600 years ago, humanity left Earth and found a galaxy full of empires. We saw what happened to species who trusted those empires. So we built our border and we built our fleet and we made a simple rule. Stay out of our space and we'll stay out of yours. Trade with us if you want. Talk with us if you want. But your warships don't cross our border. Not now. Not ever. The ambassador's face went pale with rage. You're making a terrible mistake, Admiral. Maybe, Tae-young said. But it's our mistake to make. The ambassador left the station an hour later. His ships departed Terran space in a formation that looked almost like a military parade. Captain Yuna Park watched them go from the bridge of the Indomitable. They'll be back, she said. I know, Tae-young replied. Director Hyun-woo Lee was monitoring Valdari communications. 3 days later, he called an emergency meeting. His face was grim. The Emperor has issued a decree. The Valdari 7th Armada is moving toward our border. 300 warships under Grand Marshal Keltos. They're not coming to talk. Tae-young looked at the star map on the wall. Red symbols marked the approaching Valdari fleet. Blue symbols showed the border fleet's positions. The numbers didn't look good. How long until they reach the border? He asked. 4 days, Hyun-woo said. Yuna Park was there too. She looked at the map and then at Tae-young. Admiral, we can't fight 300 ships with what we have here. We need to call for reinforcements. Already done, Tae-young said. But they won't arrive in time for the first battle. We hold with what we have. 13 ships against 300, Yuna said. Those are bad odds. Tae-young smiled, and it wasn't a kind smile. The Valdari are used to fighting species who use their technology. They think they know what human weapons can do. They're wrong. We've had 600 years to study every battle they've ever fought. We know their tactics. We know their weaknesses. And they have no idea what we've built. He turned to face both of them. Send a message to all ships. Battle stations. We hold the line here, no matter what. 4 days later, the Valdari Armada arrived at the border. 300 silver ships, beautiful and deadly, spread across space like a glittering net. At their head was the command vessel, twice the size of any other ship in the fleet. Tae-young watched them come. The Indomitable and 12 escort vessels were positioned in a defensive formation, 13 ships against 300. The whole galaxy was watching. Humanity had drawn its line in the stars. Now they would see if humans could defend it. The Valdari sent a final message. It was simple and cold. Stand aside or be destroyed. Tae-young gave his answer just as simply, no. The war had begun. Grand Marshal Keltos sat in his command chair and looked at the human ships with contempt. 13 vessels. The humans had positioned 13 vessels against his armada of 300. It was almost insulting. Did they think so little of Valdari power? Or were they simply too stupid to understand the situation? He was old, even by Valdari standards. He had commanded fleets for 200 years. He had conquered 17 star systems for the Empire. He wore his military decorations across his chest like a wall of colored metal. Every medal represented a victory. Every ribbon meant a species that had learned to fear Valdari might. Send them one final warning, he told his communications officer. Tell them they have 1 hour to move their ships. After that, we cross the border with or without their permission. The message went out. The human reply came back in less than a minute. It was just one word. No. Keltos felt his anger rise. These humans were children. They had barely left their homeworld when the Valdari Empire was already ancient. They had no right to refuse him. No right to stand in his way. All ships, he said coldly. Forward formation. We cross the border. If the humans fire on us, destroy them. The Valdari Armada began to move forward, 300 ships advancing like a silver tide. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Yuna Park watched them come. Her tactical officer, Lieutenant Suho Ryu, was tracking every ship in the Valdari fleet. The numbers on his screen updated constantly as the enemy closed the distance. They're not slowing down, Suho said. They're going to cross the border. Yuna looked at Admiral Tae-young Kim, who stood beside her chair. The old admiral's face was calm, but she could see the tension in his shoulders. He had given her command of this battle. The decision was hers. Range? She asked. Optimal firing range in 30 seconds, Suho replied. Yuna took a deep breath. Everything humanity had built, everything they had prepared for, came down to this moment. If they backed down now, the border meant nothing. Every empire in the galaxy would think humans were weak. The Terran exclusion zone would become a joke. But if they fired, there was no going back. This would be war with the most powerful empire in the galaxy. Weapons, she said quietly. Lock onto the lead destroyer. Full power. Fire when ready. The weapons officer's hands moved across his controls. Locked, firing. The Indomitable's main railgun fired. It was a weapon that used magnetic fields to accelerate a solid projectile to a significant fraction of light speed. The round was just a cylinder of dense metal, but it hit with the force of a small nuclear weapon. The Valdari destroyer never had a chance. One moment it was there, gliding forward with its shields up and its weapons ready. The next moment, the railgun round punched through its shields like they were made of paper, tore through the hull, and came out the other side. The ship exploded in a ball of white fire. The Valdari fleet stopped moving. On his command ship, Grand Marshal Keltos stared at his screens in disbelief. One shot. The humans had destroyed a Valdari destroyer with one shot. That shouldn't be possible. Valdari shields were the best in the galaxy. They had stopped weapons from 100 different species. How had a human weapon pierced them so easily? Damage report on the striker? He demanded. His sensor officer looked confused. Sir, there's nothing left to report on. The ship is gone. Complete destruction. Whatever they hit us with went straight through our shields. Keltos felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Not fear exactly, but something close to it. He pushed the feeling away. One lucky shot. That was all. The humans had gotten lucky. All ships, he said. Attack formation. Show these humans what real military power looks like. Destroy them. The Valdari armada surged forward. 300 ships, their weapons powering up, their missiles launching. Space filled with fire and death as the Valdari opened fire with everything they had. Yuna Park watched the missile swarm coming toward her ships. Thousands of missiles, more than she could count. Enough firepower to destroy a small planet, all of it coming straight at 13 human ships. Point defense, she said calmly. Engage. The Indomitable's point defense system came online. It was something new, something the Valdari had never seen before. Hundreds of small railguns controlled by advanced AI, capable of tracking and destroying thousands of targets per second. The missiles never got close. The point defense system killed them all. Every single missile, destroyed in a wall of fire that looked like a solid shield around the human ships. On the fighter deck, Commander Jiwan Choi was climbing into her cockpit. She led Ghost Squadron, the best fighter pilots in the Terran fleet. 12 pilots, 12 ships, all of them ready to show the Valdari what human fighters could do. Ghost Squadron, she said into her radio. Launch when ready. Remember your training. Stay in formation. Watch each other's backs. And show these aliens why they should have stayed on their side of the border. The fighters launched. They were small craft, barely 20 meters long, but they moved like nothing the Valdari had ever seen. Human fighters used fusion drives that could accelerate faster than any Valdari ship. They could turn on a single point, stop and reverse in seconds, dance through space like they were flying an atmosphere. Jiwan led her squadron straight into the Valdari fleet. The enemy ships tried to track them, but human fighters were too fast, too agile. Jiwan's squadron wove between Valdari destroyers, firing missiles at point-blank range, then disappearing before the enemy could return fire. A Valdari cruiser exploded. Then another. Then a third. Ghost Squadron was ripping through the Valdari formation like sharks through fish. Back on the Indomitable, Lieutenant Suho Ryu was coordinating the fleet's fire. The human ships fought like nothing the Valdari had encountered before. They didn't just attack. They worked together like parts of a single organism. When one ship fired, the others adjusted their positions to give it the best angle. When missiles came in, every ship's point defense worked together to create overlapping fields of fire. The Valdari were losing ships. Not quickly, but steadily. Their weapons couldn't penetrate human shields. Their missiles couldn't get past human point defense. Their ships couldn't match human maneuverability. Grand Marshal Keltos watched his fleet take casualties and felt rage building inside him. This wasn't how battles were supposed to go. The Valdari had numbers. They had experience. They had conquered the galaxy. These humans should be running away or burning in space. His second-in-command, Vice Admiral Talvin, approached his chair. Talvin was younger, more cautious. "Marshal, we've lost 47 ships. We've destroyed none of theirs. Perhaps we should reconsider." "No." Kelto slammed his fist on his chair's arm. "We do not retreat from humans. Send in the second wave. Commit all forces. I want those ships destroyed." The Valdari fleet pressed forward. 250 ships now, all focusing their fire on the 13 human vessels. Space became a storm of energy beams and missiles and explosions. On border station Jeju 7, engineer Min Seok Kang watched the battle on his screens. He was in charge of keeping the station running, but right now all he could do was watch and hope. The human ships were outnumbered 20-1. They were fighting perfectly, but could they hold? Then the sensors picked up new contacts. A lot of them. "Admiral," Min Seok called to Tae-young Kim. "New arrivals. Human ships, 200 of them. The border fleet is here." Tae-young allowed himself a small smile. "Right on time. Send them their coordinates. Let's show the Valdari what happens when you threaten human space." 200 more human ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel right at the border. They were frigates, destroyers, cruisers, and 3 more dreadnoughts. The entire border fleet had arrived, and they came in fighting. The battle became chaos. Human ships worked in perfect coordination, each one supporting the others. Valdari ships fought bravely but alone, each captain trying to win glory for himself. It was the difference between an orchestra and a crowd of people shouting. More Valdari ships died. Human casualties remained at 0. On his command ship, Grand Marshal Keltos finally understood. These humans weren't lucky. They weren't children playing with weapons they didn't understand. They had studied Valdari tactics for hundreds of years. They had built their entire military specifically to fight empires like the Valdari. Every weapon, every tactic, every strategy was designed to counter what the Valdari did best. And it was working. "Marshal," Vice Admiral Talvin said quietly, "we need to withdraw. We've lost over 100 ships. If we stay, we'll lose the entire fleet." Keltos wanted to refuse. He wanted to keep fighting until the humans were destroyed or until his last ship burned. But he was a military commander, not a fool. "Talvin was right, all ships," he said, and the words tasted like poison. "Withdraw to Rally Point Gamma. We retreat." The Valdari fleet began pulling back, still firing, still fighting, but moving away from the border. Human ships let them go. They didn't chase. They didn't need to. They had made their point. The battle had lasted 6 hours. The Valdari had lost 109 ships. The humans had lost none. Captain Yuna Park stood on her bridge and watched the enemy retreat. Her crew was cheering, celebrating their victory. But she felt no joy. This was just the beginning. The Valdari Empire wouldn't accept this defeat. They would come back. With more ships, with better tactics, with everything they had. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The Valdari Empire, rulers of 50,000 systems, masters of the galaxy for 10,000 years, had been defeated by humans. Not just defeated, humiliated. 109 ships lost against 0 human casualties. It was unthinkable. It was impossible. But it had happened. On the Valdari homeworld, Emperor Vrathnor sat on his crystal throne and listened to the reports with growing fury. He was 400 years old, ancient even by Valdari standards. He had ruled the empire for 2 centuries. In all that time, no species had dared to defy him like this. "Show me the battle recordings," he commanded. His advisors played the footage. The Emperor watched human ships move through space with precision his own fleet couldn't match. He watched human weapons tear through Valdari shields. He watched his proud warships retreat like frightened animals. When the footage ended, the throne room was silent. Everyone waited to see how the Emperor would react. Vrathnor stood slowly. His voice, when he spoke, was cold enough to freeze stars. "Total fleet mobilization. I want every available warship brought to the human border. 10,000 ships. 20,000 if we can manage it. These humans will learn what happens when you insult the Valdari Empire." One of his counselors, a female named Vexana, dared to speak. "Your Majesty, perhaps we should negotiate. The humans clearly have—" "Silence." The Emperor's eyes blazed. "We do not negotiate with inferiors. We do not accept defeat from a species that learned to make fire while we were building star empires. Bring me their ships. Bring me their stations. Bring me their homeworld in chains." In the Galactic Assembly, a massive space station where hundreds of species met to discuss politics and trade, Ambassador Ji Sung-moon stood before the council. She was young for an ambassador, barely 40 years old, but she spoke with confidence. "Members of the Assembly," she said, "you've all seen what happened at the Terran border. The Valdari Empire attempted to violate our sovereignty. We defended ourselves. Now the Empire threatens total war. We ask the Assembly to recognize humanity's right to defend its borders." A representative from the Korthan species spoke up. The Korthans were allies of the Valdari, and they didn't like humans much. "You provoked this war, Ambassador. The Valdari only asked for passage. You responded with violence." Ji-sung turned to face the Korthan. "They demanded entry to our space with warships. That's not asking, that's threatening. We have the same right as any species to control who enters our territory." "You have the right," another representative agreed. This one was from the Helion Confederacy, a group of species who had suffered under Valdari expansion. "But do you have the strength? The Empire will send everything they have against you. Your 13 ships won't be enough." 800 ships, Ji-sung corrected. "That's our current border fleet and more are coming." "But you're right. Numbers matter. That's why we studied how to win despite being outnumbered. That's why we spent 600 years preparing for exactly this situation." She activated a holographic display that showed human military technology. "We didn't just build weapons. We built a philosophy of warfare. Every human ship is designed to work with every other human ship. Our crews train together. Our AIs coordinate in real time. Our tactics are based on 600 years of studying every galactic conflict. We learned from everyone's mistakes, including yours." The assembly chamber erupted in angry voices. Some species were insulted. Others were impressed. Most were simply scared. If humans could defeat the Valdari so easily, what did that mean for the rest of the galaxy? Back on Earth in the Terran Federation capital, Premier Yoon Ji-han was meeting with her military commanders. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had led the Federation through 15 years of peace. Now she had to lead them through war. General Haewon Song stood at the head of the table. She commanded the Terran Marine Corps, the ground forces of humanity's military. She was tall and muscular with scars on her face from the expansion wars. "Premier," Haewon said, "the Valdari are preparing a massive offensive. Intelligence says 10,000 ships. We have 800 at the border, and we can get another 400 from Earth within 2 weeks. But that's still not enough." "Then we don't fight them head-on," said Admiral Kyung-Soo Park. He was retired now, but he had designed the entire Terran military doctrine. He was also Captain Yuna Park's father. "We use mobility. We use surprise. We make them fight our kind of war, not theirs." Dr. Bora Shin, the Federation's top expert on alien species, was there too. She looked worried. "The problem isn't just military. It's psychological. The Valdari have ruled through intimidation for 10,000 years. Every species in the galaxy thinks they're invincible. If we beat them, really beat them, it changes everything. Other species might rebel against the Empire, or they might join the Empire to crush us before we become a threat." Premier Yoon Ji-han nodded slowly. "So we're fighting for more than just our borders. We're fighting to prove that empires can be resisted, that younger species don't have to bow to older ones." She looked around the table. "Can we win?" Admiral Kyung-Soo Park smiled. It was the same smile his daughter had when she prepared for battle. "Yes, but not the way they expect." At the Terran border, the fighting continued. The Valdari kept probing human defenses, sending small fleets to test different sectors. Each time, human forces drove them back. But everyone knew this was just the prelude. The real battle was coming. Captain Yuna Park was leading patrol missions along the border when she encountered something unexpected. A Valdari battleship, alone and damaged, trying to limp away from human space. Her tactical officer, Lieutenant Suho Ryu, identified it immediately. "That's the Eternal Glory, flagship of Battle Group 12. She's badly damaged. Life support is failing." Yuna studied the readings. The ship was dying. Its crew would be dead within hours. She could just let it drift. One less enemy ship to worry about. But that wasn't how humans fought. "Open a channel," she ordered. "Valdari vessel, this is the Terran warship Indomitable. Your ship is dying. We're prepared to take your crew aboard. Do you accept humanitarian assistance?" The reply came back after a long pause. The Valdari captain sounded shocked. "You would help us? We are your enemies." You're also people, Una said simply, and your ship is going to explode. We can save you or we can watch you die. Your choice. An hour later, 300 Valdari crew members were aboard the Indomitable. They were prisoners, technically, but they were alive. The Valdari captain, a young officer named Helvor, stood in the Indomitable's medical bay and watched human doctors treat his wounded crew. Why? He asked Una. We came to conquer you. We tried to kill you. Why save us? Una looked at him. Because that's what we do. We defend our borders, yes. We fight when we have to. But we don't kill people just because we can. There's a difference between defending yourself and being cruel. Helvor was silent for a long time. Then he said quietly, You're not what we expected. The Empire teaches us that young species are barbaric, emotional, weak. But you fight like warriors and show mercy like, I don't know what. We have no word for it. The word is humanity, Una said. News of the rescue spread through the Valdari fleet. Some officers were angry, claiming it was a trick, but others started to wonder. Maybe the humans weren't the monsters the Empire described. Maybe they were just people defending their homes. On the third day after the first battle, General Haywan Song led a marine assault on a damaged Valdari cruiser that was still in human space. The ship had been abandoned by its crew after a skirmish, but it contained valuable intelligence data. Haywan took 50 Marines in boarding pods that attached to the Valdari hull. Inside the ship, they found the data system still active. Haywan's technical team downloaded everything. Valdari fleet positions, battle plans, supply routes, everything. But they also found something else. The ship's log contained orders from Grand Marshal Keltos himself. Director Hyunwoo Lee read those orders and felt cold. They're not just planning to defeat us. They're planning to make an example of us. If they break through our border, they're going to destroy every human colony they can reach, not occupy them. Destroy them. Kill everyone. Admiral Tae-young Kim looked at the intelligence reports. Then we make sure they never break through. But the numbers were still bad. Even with reinforcements from Earth, humanity would have 1,200 ships at most. The Valdari were gathering 10,000. It was Dr. Bora Shin who came up with the answer. She had been studying Valdari psychology, trying to understand how they thought. The Valdari fight for glory, she explained. Every captain wants to be the hero who wins the battle. They compete with each other for honor. That's why they fight as individuals instead of as a fleet. So we use that against them, Tae-young said. We make them fight each other as much as they fight us. Exactly, Bora replied. And we use technology they don't expect. The Valdari have fought 100 species, but those species all used similar technology. Energy shields, particle beams, plasma weapons. But humans develop differently. We have railguns. We have kinetic weapons. We have tactics based on Earth's military history. We're not just different from them. We're incompatible with their entire way of war. Admiral Kyung-soo Park was listening from Earth. The Valdari Grand Armada arrived at the border like a storm. 10,000 warships assembled from across the Empire. The largest fleet gathered in 1,000 years. They came in formation, perfectly organized, shining silver in the light of distant stars. It was meant to be a show of power. It was meant to make humans surrender just from seeing it. Admiral Tae-young Kim stood on border station Jeju 7 and watched them come. He had 800 ships now, spread across the border in defensive positions. Against 10,000, it looked hopeless, but numbers alone didn't win battles. He had learned that in the first fight. All ships, he said calmly. Hold position. Wait for my signal. On the Valdari command ship, Grand Marshal Keltos was not in charge anymore. Emperor Vrathnor had sent someone new, someone more ruthless. Fleet Commander Draknor was young for a Valdari, only 150 years old. But he had a reputation for brutality. He believed in overwhelming force. He believed in making examples. Human forces, Draknor broadcast. You are outnumbered more than 12 to 1. Your first battle was luck. This time you face the full might of the Valdari Empire. Surrender now, and we will allow you to live as subjects of the Empire. Refuse, and we will destroy every human ship, every human station, every human colony we can reach. You have 1 hour to decide. The hour passed in silence. Human ships stayed in position. They didn't run. They didn't surrender. They just waited. When the hour ended, Draknor smiled. Very well. All ships attack formation. Show these humans what happens to species who defy us. The Valdari Armada began to move forward. A wall of 10,000 ships. It looked unstoppable. Then something unexpected happened. A new fleet arrived, dropping out of faster-than-light travel right behind the human forces. 400 ships fresh from Earth. But these weren't the standard border fleet vessels. These were the home fleet, humanity's strategic reserve. The newest, most advanced, most powerful ships humans had ever built. Leading them was Fleet Admiral Dae-Jung Hwang, the supreme commander of all Terran space forces. He was 70 years old, a veteran of every major conflict in human expansion history. His flagship, the Titan, was twice the size of the Indomitable and carried weapons that made regular railguns look like toys. Admiral Kim, Dae-Jung said over secure communication. "Sorry we're late. Traffic was terrible. Let's show these Valdari what Earth's finest can do." Tae-Young Kim felt relief wash over him. 1,200 ships now, still outnumbered but not as badly. "Welcome, Admiral. We've been waiting for you." The battle began with the Valdari launching everything they had, thousands of missiles. Energy beams that could melt asteroids, plasma torpedoes that burned like small suns. The sky filled with fire and death, but the human fleet didn't break. The home fleet ships had even better point defense systems than the border fleet. They created walls of fire that nothing could penetrate. Valdari missiles died by the thousands. Valdari energy beams scattered against human shields, and then Captain Sora Nam made her move. Sora commanded the Silent Thunder, a stealth carrier unlike anything the Valdari had ever seen. Her ship had been in Valdari space for 3 weeks, sitting silent and invisible, waiting for this moment. The Valdari didn't know human stealth technology. They had no idea the Silent Thunder was there. The carrier was positioned behind the Valdari rear formations, in the middle of their supply ships and support vessels. When the battle started, Sora gave a simple order. "Launch everything." The Silent Thunder opened its bays and released 10,000 autonomous hunter-killer drones. They were small, fast, and deadly. Each one was equipped with a small fusion warhead and an AI capable of identifying Valdari weak points. The drones spread through the Valdari rear formations like a swarm of insects. They targeted engines, weapon systems, life support. Each drone picked a target, accelerated to ramming speed, and detonated. Valdari ships began exploding, not at the front where they expected battle, but at the rear where they thought they were safe. Panic spread through the Valdari fleet. Captains started breaking formation to chase the drones. The perfect Valdari battle formation collapsed into chaos. Fleet Commander Draknor watched his carefully planned attack fall apart. "What is happening? Where did those drones come from?" His sensor officer was frantically checking readings. "Sir, we're detecting a human ship in our rear positions. It's been there the whole time. We just couldn't see it. That's impossible," Draknor screamed. "Our sensors are the best in the galaxy." "Not anymore," the sensor officer whispered. At the same time, Agent Youngmi Baek was activating her network. She had spent 5 years undercover in Valdari territory, building a spy network that stretched across dozens of systems. She had agents in fuel depots, communication centers, military bases, all of them waiting for this moment. Youngmi sent a simple coded message. "Now." Across Valdari space, sabotage teams went to work. Fuel depots exploded. Communication relays went offline. Supply convoys were ambushed. Nothing critical to the Valdari homeworld, but enough to disrupt the supply lines feeding the Grand Armada. Draknor found himself fighting a battle on 2 fronts. At the border, human ships were holding their own despite being outnumbered. Behind him, drones were tearing apart his support ships. And across the Empire, his supply lines were under attack. "All ships," he ordered. "Focus fire on the human command ships. Ignore the drones." The Valdari fleet tried to reorganize, to focus their overwhelming numbers on key human vessels. But Admiral Dae-Jung Hwang had trained for exactly this situation. His fleet fought like a living thing, every ship supporting the others, constantly moving, never staying still long enough for the Valdari to coordinate effective attacks. General Hae-Won Song led her Marines in a desperate gambit. She took 5 boarding teams, 200 Marines total, and attacked a Valdari battleship, not from outside with missiles, but by actually boarding the vessel. Her teams used cutting torches to breach the hull, then fought their way inside. The Valdari crew wasn't prepared for close combat inside their own ship. Humans fought with rifles, explosives, and brutal efficiency. Within an hour, Hae-Won's team had captured the battleship's bridge. "This is General Song," she broadcast on Valdari frequencies. Your ship Rising Dawn is under human control. We have 600 of your crew as prisoners. If you want them to live, you'll listen to what I have to say." It was psychological warfare. The Valdari had never had a ship captured in battle before. The thought that humans were fighting inside Valdari vessels, turning them against their own fleet, was terrifying. The battle raged for 3 days. Not one continuous fight, but waves of attacks and counterattacks. Human casualties were mounting now. They had lost 50 ships, hundreds of fighters, thousands of crew. But the Valdari were losing so much more. Their formations were broken. Their tactics were useless. Their technology wasn't superior anymore. And worst of all, their morale was crumbling. On the 3rd day, Grand Marshal Keltos, who had been in command of the 7th Armada, did something unthinkable. He had been reassigned to a smaller command after his first defeat, but he still held influence in the fleet. As he watched the Grand Armada suffer another devastating loss, as he counted 3,000 Valdari ships destroyed, he made a decision. In his private quarters, Keltos performed the traditional Valdari ritual of command failure. He wrote a letter explaining his actions, sealed it carefully, and then took his own life. For a Valdari marshal, defeat without honor was worse than death. When news of Keltos' suicide reached the fleet, it shook the Valdari to their core. Marshals didn't kill themselves. Marshals won battles. The fact that one had chosen death rather than face more defeat told everyone how badly the war was going. Fleet Commander Draknor was losing control. His fleet was in chaos. Half his ships were damaged or destroyed. His supply lines were collapsing, and the humans just kept fighting with a determination that seemed impossible. On the Valdari homeworld, Emperor Vrathnor watched the battle reports with growing horror. This wasn't supposed to happen. The Empire had 10,000 ships. 10,000. How were they losing? In his throne room, High Priest Zalman approached carefully. The High Priest was ancient, older even than the Emperor. He spoke in a voice like wind over sand. "Your Majesty, there are prophecies, old prophecies from before the Empire began. They speak of warriors from a small blue world who would humble the proud. We thought they were just legends. We were wrong. I don't care about prophecies," Vrathnor shouted. "I care about winning this war." "Then perhaps," Zalman said softly, "you should consider that we cannot win. Not this way. Not against humans who fight like demons and refuse to surrender." At the border, Admiral Tae-young Kim was coordinating the defense when he received a priority message from Valdari space. It was from Counselor Vexana, the moderate voice on the Valdari Council. "Admiral Kim," she said, "I speak without the Emperor's knowledge. Our fleet is broken. Our pride is shattered. If this continues, it will destroy not just our military but our entire empire. Please, can we talk about ending this war?" Tae-young looked at the battle display. Human ships were winning, but they were exhausted. If the Valdari kept fighting, kept sending more fleets, eventually humanity would run out of ships and crew. Both sides were bleeding. Both sides needed this to end. The Valdari Empire didn't surrender. It simply fell apart. Within weeks of the border battle, 19 species declared independence from Valdari rule. Some did it peacefully, just announcing they no longer recognized the Emperor's authority. Others did it violently, attacking Valdari military bases and driving occupying forces off their worlds. Empire that had ruled 50,000 systems for 10,000. Years was collapsing like a house made of cards. Emperor Vrathnor watched his empire crumble from his crystal throne. He was ancient, powerful, and for the first time in his 400 years of life, he was afraid. Not of humans exactly, but of what humans represented. The idea that empires could be resisted, that younger species didn't have to bow to older ones, that idea was more dangerous to him than any weapon. His daughter, Princess Lyranus, came to him in the throne room. She was young, only 80 years old, but she saw the galaxy differently than her father. She had watched the war with humans. She had seen Valdari pride turn into Valdari destruction. "Father," she said gently, "you need to abdicate. Let me take the throne. Let me make peace." "Never." Vratnor's voice shook with rage. "I will not surrender to humans. I will not watch everything we built turn to dust." "It's already dust, Father," Lyranus said sadly. "Look at what's happening. The Empire is gone. If you keep fighting, you'll destroy what's left, please. Let me try to save something." Vrathnor looked at his daughter for a long time. He saw in her eyes what he had lost, hope. Finally, slowly, he nodded. "Very well. The throne is yours. Try to save what you can. On Earth, Premier Unjihan faced a different choice. Humanity had won the war. The Valdari Empire was broken. Human ships could sweep across the galaxy, taking systems, building their own empire. Many people wanted exactly that. Why not? Humans had proven they were stronger. Why not rule? Premier Yunji called a meeting of her top advisors. Admiral Daejung Hwang was there. General Hae Won-song, Director Hyun-woo Lee, Ambassador Ji Sung-moon, and Admiral Kyung-soo Park, the retired architect of human military strategy. The question before us, Yunji said, is simple. What do we do with our victory? Do we expand? Do we build an empire of our own? General Hae Won-song spoke first. She was a soldier, and soldiers think in practical terms. We could. We have the military power. We have the technology. We could control 1,000 systems within a year. And then what? Admiral Kyung-soo Park asked quietly. We become what we fought against. We spend the next 100 years putting down rebellions and fighting other species who fear us? Is that what we want? What's the alternative? Haewon asked. We just go back to our borders and hope everyone leaves us alone? Yes, Kyung-soo said. Exactly that. We built the Terran exclusion zone for a reason. We didn't want to be part of the galaxy's endless wars. We wanted to exist on our own terms. That hasn't changed. Ambassador Ji Sung-moon agreed. We've already changed the galaxy just by winning. We've proven that empires can be resisted. If we build our own empire, we destroy that lesson. We become just another power trying to dominate others. Director Hyun-woo Lee had been quiet, but now he spoke. There's also practical concerns. The Valdari Empire controlled 50,000 systems and it collapsed in weeks. Why? Because you can't hold an empire together by force alone. Eventually people resist. We'd be facing constant rebellions just like the Valdari did. Premier Yoon-ji-han listened to all of them. Then she made her decision. We maintain our borders. We don't expand. But we establish what I'm calling the open gate policy. Any species can have diplomatic relations with us. Any species can trade with us. But military vessels stay out of Terran space. No exceptions. We'll be part of the galaxy, but on our own terms. Not everyone agreed with this decision. Some human colonies wanted to expand. Some military leaders thought they should press their advantage. But Premier Unji held firm. We didn't fight this war to become conquerors. We fought it to be left alone. Now we've made our point. We go back to our borders. At Border Station Jeju 7, Admiral Tae-young Kim received word that Princess Lyra Ness wanted to meet with him. She came alone in a small diplomatic ship. No weapons, no guards. Just her and a pilot. They met in the same conference room where Tae-young had met with the Valdari ambassador before the war. But this time was different. Lyra Ness didn't come with threats. She came with respect. Admiral Kim, she said, bowing in the human style, I come to apologize for my people's actions. We were arrogant. We believed ourselves superior simply because we were older. We forgot that age doesn't equal wisdom. Tae-young studied her. What do you want, princess? Peace, she said simply. A real peace, not just a temporary ceasefire. I want to establish formal relations between what remains of the Valdari territories and the Terran Federation. I want to learn from you, and I want to make sure this never happens again. Can you speak for your people? Tae-young asked. Many Valdari still hate us. They do, Lyra Ness admitted. But they also fear you, and fear will keep them from attacking. Over time, maybe we can turn fear into respect. Maybe someday into friendship. Tae-young thought about it. Then he extended his hand. Agreed. But understand this, the Terran exclusion zone remains. Your ships don't cross our borders. Ever. Lyra Ness took his hand and shook it human style. Agreed. You have my word, and the word of the Valdari throne. In the Galactic Assembly, huge changes were happening. The Valdari had been removed from the Security Council. Their seat was offered to humanity. Ambassador Ji Sung-moon turned it down. We don't want to rule the galaxy, she explained. We just want to exist peacefully within it. Give the seat to someone else. Give it to several someone else's. Maybe instead of one dominant empire, the galaxy needs a council of equals. Her words sparked a revolution in galactic politics. The old system, where powerful empires dominated weaker species, began to break down. In its place, a new system emerged. Species would work together as partners, not as masters and subjects. Commander Won-shik-yoon became the first human to serve in the reformed galactic peacekeeping forces. He was young, only 32, but he had proven himself in the war. Now he taught other species human military tactics, not so they could conquer, so they could defend themselves. The secret, one Shik told his students from a dozen different species, is that you don't need to be the strongest. You need to be too expensive to fight. Make conquering you cost more than it's worth. That's how you stay free. Captain Una Park was promoted to admiral and given permanent command of the border fleet. She understood now that her job wasn't just military, it was symbolic. Her fleet proved every day that humanity's borders meant something. That when humans said stay out, they meant it and could enforce it. Commander Jiwan Choi continued training fighter pilots. But now some of those pilots came from other species. The Helian Confederacy sent students. So did the Korthan, though they wouldn't admit they needed human training. Even some Valdari came, young officers who wanted to learn from the species that had defeated their empire. Dr. Bora Shin wrote a book about the war. She called it The Price of Arrogance: How Empires Fall. It became required reading at military academies across the galaxy. Her main point was simple. Underestimating others is the fastest way to defeat yourself. General Haewon Song retired from active duty and became an instructor at Earth's War College. She taught young officers about combat, yes, but also about mercy. She told them about the Valdari crew the Indomitable had rescued. We fight hard, she said, but we don't fight cruel. That's what makes us human. Director Hunwoo Lee's intelligence division became famous across the galaxy. Other species asked for his help setting up their own intelligence services. He was happy to help with one condition: use intelligence to prevent wars, not start them. 50 years passed. The Terran exclusion zone remained inviolate, not because humans fought constant battles to defend it, but because the galaxy had learned. When humanity drew a line and said, "Do not cross," they meant it, and they had the strength to enforce it. The galaxy had changed. The age of great empires imposing their will on everyone else was over. In its place came an age of cooperation, where species worked together as partners. Not everyone was happy about it. Some species missed the old days when strength meant dominance, but no one was willing to test humanity's borders to change things back. Admiral Tae-Young Kim, now 82 years old, stood on the observation deck of Border Station Jeju 7. He was retiring today. Admiral Una Park would take over as commander of the station. It felt right, passing the torch to the next generation. He looked out at the stars and remembered the day the Valdari first arrived. The day they demanded passage. The day humanity said no. Everything had changed because of that single word. Nomayuna joined him at the window. "Any advice for your replacement?" she asked with a smile. Tae-Young thought about it. "Remember why we're here. We're not here to conquer. We're not here to rule. We're here to protect humanity's right to exist on our own terms. Keep that in mind and you'll do fine." "What if another empire tries what the Valdari did?" Una asked. Tae-Young smiled. It was the same smile he'd had when facing 300 Valdari ships with only 13 human vessels. "Then we remind them what happened to the last empire that tried. We hold the line. We always hold the line."